So this is the image we are going to be working with today, and I have both clipping on, just so that you can see if anything is going to clip, and you can see that we have a slight clip in here, nothing in the whites or the highlights. So let's start by setting up the image. I'm going to bring the exposure back just ever so slightly, push the contrast, lift the shadows, bring back the whites slightly, lift the blacks. I'm also going to add some texture and clarity to this. And you can see that when we added the clarity, the image began to brighten again. You also notice we have some clipping in here, but that is minimal, so I'm not too worried about it. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to crop. And to give this a sense of scale, I want the cottage to feel as if it's dwarfed by the mountains above. And I'm also wanting the cottage in the middle as well. So that there, if we take that as the middle line, if I push that over there, I'm going to lose some of the top of the mountains. And if you look up here, you will always see what your final crop is going to be. So because I'm losing some of the top, I'm actually going to bring it onto the mountains there as well and move that back over to there. Yep, quite happy with that. Let's have a look at that. So you can see that that gives the proportional size of these mountains to this small cottage. Tiny bit up here that I'm not too happy about, so I'm going to go in, edge patrol straight away, and just get rid of it to save us doing any work later. So we have a few adjustments in here. Another thing that I want to do is I want to move the hue of the green slightly. So I'm going to do this via point color, and I'm going to go in and select a light green, and I'm going to move it over to the warmer tones slightly, just to about there. That's not much of a move. I'm going to take another one and go in here. Again, move this over to the warmer tones just ever so slightly. You can see it moving here. Going to take another one, go into the lighter. This time I'm going to move the luminance just to around about there. That way I feel as if I have a nice balance for the rest of the edit that I'm going to do. And I'm just going to bring that over slightly back into the greens. Can pull the saturation back or push it. I'm going to leave it around about there, just at +5. Now going to jump back up to basic, and as you can see, I want to add a slight more texture to this. Everything looks fine there. The clipping's increased, but again, it's negligible with this. So I'm now going to jump into the masks. First thing I'm going to do is take the landscape mask and see how it reads this image. Mountains, yep. Architecture, yep. An extra part in there, which we will remove. And then vegetation. Now the vegetation, is it needed? No, let's leave it. So let's just create 3 masks. Create masks. First mask we're going to work with is the sky. I'm going to bring that back just ever so slightly, just to around about there. Push the contrast, which will increase the vibrance of the blues or the saturation of the blues. I'm going to bring back the highlights slightly. Shadows I'm going to leave, but I am then going to go in and add some texture to it. I want some texture in these clouds. There we go. And we have to be careful when we're using texture and clarity within clouds in case we have blues in the sky that begin to interact and not look natural. Everything so far is looking well. The mountains, we are going to leave that. We're going to put slightly more contrast in the mountains because of what we're going to do later. I'm going to lift the blacks as well, not too much, to around about there. So that means I'm going to bring the exposure back slightly to about there, because the main subject of this, the main part of the photograph, was to show the scale of the mountains against the cottage. So we're going to work with light and shade to help bring that out for the viewer. The shadows I'm going to lift ever so slightly, blacks again ever so slightly. Temperature I'm going to warm up, and everything that we are doing is incremental. Again, I'm going to be careful when I add texture and clarity here, because we can't add too much or the image is going to be over sharpened and just look unnatural. I'm going to leave the architecture until I have edited everything else. Next thing, a new mask. This new mask is going to be a linear gradient. I want to draw your eyes in here. So I'm going to add a linear gradient in here. I'm going to draw it back. And I'm going to pull the exposure down. Then I'm going to put a touch of contrast into it. Highlights I'm going to lift again. Shadows I'm going to bring back, and you'll see they hardly affect it, and that is what I am after with this. And I may even draw that back further. That looks okay. Yep. Quite happy there as well. The next thing, as per usual with most of the images I edit, I am going to add a radial gradient. And the radial gradient is simply put in to draw your eye towards where I want you to look first. And that's in here. I want the eye to lead through and then up there. Although the diagonals tell you to look down here first, I want this to be your main focus. So I'm going to lift the exposure here again slightly. We can take it too much, just about 21. Looks okay at the moment. Add a touch of contrast, which is going to brighten it, so I may drag that back. I'm going to pull the highlights back to about there, shadows to about there. So let's have a look at the before and after. So already you can see the difference that that has made to this image. Back into the main edit. Now, I'm quite happy with everything going on here. I'm happy with the light coming off the edge and going off the edge there. It breaks the image down. So what we're going to do with this image is very loosely, we are going to start adding light in to emphasize the mountains even further before we edit the cottage. So this is going to be made up of a few masks. The first one that we are going to do is the color range, and we are going to go in here and we're going to take that color range and we're going to show the overlay. So I don't want it to affect anything down here at all. I want it just to play with certain areas up there at the moment before we do the next step. So I'm going to have to subtract some areas. So I'm going to use the brush to do this, and I'm going to do this very, very loosely because I want the image to feel as natural as possible. Just do that in there, up there, just blend it away there. And I'm using the feathered edge to catch some of those blends. So I'm going to work with this to see how it actually goes. I'm going to do that ever so slightly. And that is okay for me just now. I'm going to add some contrast, which I know will lighten it again. And I'm going to add some more warmth to it, which I know will have an effect on it again. So let's have a look at the before and after now. So you can see already we've created some more depth in the image using these quick edits. For this next part, we are going to add a brush mask, and we are going to set the exposure up to about 26. We can adjust this later. And I'm simply going to paint on some of these areas. I'll take the brush back up in size so that you can see it better. Now, I'm being very liberal with this, just to show you the effects that it can have. If I was doing this for a final image, I would certainly be taking my time. And just in here, down there, there. So if I turn that mask on and off, You'll see the difference that that creates. Again, we're going to create a new mask, again with another brush. We'll take that back up to about 21 again. Take it down in size. This time I'm going to emphasize some of the rock face. In here, down there, there. Let's take that a bit there, that part there, and perhaps even overemphasize some of these. And we're just working with the light that we have in the image. We're not trying to create new light or new areas of light. We're simply working with what nature has given us. Again, quite happy, perhaps just in there. I know I have moved from the rocks, painted over some of these, but it's as you're working, you think, right, okay, if I now do this. So with that layer, again, I am quite happy. We're nearly at the end of this edit. I'm going to get into the architecture. Exposure, we don't want to adjust too much. Just about there. Add a touch of contrast into it. If we lift the highlights, you'll see what it does there. Because this is such a small area, I'm not subtracting it at the moment. Shadows, let's lift the shadows. Shadows we're not going to touch, blacks we're not going to touch. Yes, I am going to add a touch of clarity to it. So we have before and after, and you can see the amount of depth we've created in a relatively short space of time. Now I'm going to add one more edit to this, and this is a radial gradient, which I'm going to put in here, just about there. So with this radial gradient, I'm going to invert it. So with this radial gradient inverted, I'm just going to start drawing it in. Just to around about there. And this I am quite happy with. So there you have it. Here's the before and the after in a relatively short space of time. Thanks again for watching, and I hope this video proved useful to you in some way. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.